Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the American Dream. We're back again this week to talk about the special election that's coming up on March 14th to determine whether we will have two new schools in Lynn, one on Parkland Avenue and one on Commercial Street, to replace the Pickering School. Our guest today, Don Castle from Pine Hill. Don is a lawyer and a probation officer, and he's leading the effort to oppose this project. And with him is Gary Welch, who is also leading the effort to oppose this project. Both of these guys are well-schooled in Lynn issues, and they're Pine Hill people. So, what's the name of your organization?
Protect Our Reservoir, Preserve Pine Grove.
Okay. Preserve Pine Grove?
Preserve Pine Grove, yes.
Okay. So I want to throw this notion out. Apparently, the major opposition to this project is taxes and the cost of it. I've seen studies which show that when a community has a new school, it raises the whole community. It develops community pride, it provides a great space for kids to study and learn, for teachers to teach, and it enhances property values. We were just talking about this article that was in the north section of the Sunday Globe the other day. What struck me about this article was Raleigh is also going for a new school. Their school was built in 1954. And Ipswich is also going for a new school, and their school was built in 1965. Pickering was built in 1916. Should not Lynn kids have the same opportunities as suburban schools?
I agree completely. I fully concur. Education is one of those rising tides that lifts all boats. And it's not just in terms of property values. I think just the general quality of the community
That's
goes
right.
up with education.
Yeah.
I'm fully in favor of it. My wife was a teacher. She came to this country. She was 7 years old, didn't speak a word of English. She graduated with a master's degree in education. She taught in the public schools for 20 years and would be teaching there today if she hadn't died. I am fully in favor of education. I am fully in favor of a new school, and I've been to the Marshall School. It's a terrific school. It's wonderful for the children of Lynn. We're not opposed to the schools. We're not opposed to education. We're opposed to this particular site on Parkland Avenue in Pine Grove.
Okay, do you want to comment?
And I would just add, as you're reading that, Jim, the other cities are 1965 and 1954. And ours is 1916. Why are our schools so far behind? There should be a plan to replace our schools as well as a plan to run the city. So if the schools are this old, there should be somehow public involvement with replacing the schools and not waiting so long. This is
irrespective of what's happened in the past, isn't that what they're trying to do now? They're trying, and by the way, I think this is a great deal. I've never seen the opportunity for two schools to replace one.
I think it's unique for MSBA, isn't it?
It is unique.
Yeah,
They're telling me it's the first
that's
time.
what I
but
mean, yeah.
This entire problem we're having today with this,
What's the problem?
well, it's the process, it's the site, and it's the cost. Those are the three things.
Did they hold open public hearings?
They are mandated by the MSBA to hold a public forum.
And did the city hold those hearings?
They held the public forum
Okay.
on September, the second one. And I may add, I told the Chamber of Commerce this about 2 hours ago. No one knew about the public forum. They posted on their website. They did the minimum to make the public aware, to see. It's my belief they didn't want really much public input. We got wind of it. We didn't even know about the first one. There wasn't advertising the item. There was no mailings to the neighborhood. So we brought 150 neighbors.
Was there a story in the item about it before the forum?
I didn't see it. I read the paper every day. I buy the item every day. I'm very active. I may have missed it to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we missed it. I don't know.
I heard about it word of mouth.
Right.
Word of mouth.
So with the process, what we did is we as a neighbor, as taxpayers, as homeowners, as citizens of Lynn, made up flyers. We copied the 300 or 400. A bunch of us dropped them off in Pine Hill and B Street and areas affected by the Parkland Ave site. And we brought 150 people to the September 14th public forum number 2 at Marshall.
Standing room only.
Standing room only. Most of us were against it. They didn't want to take the cemetery, and we'll get into that. Not knowing on September 14th when we're at Marshall.
Would you say they didn't want to take the cemetery?
Well, we're
Okay.
basically against it for a couple of different reasons.
They were asking for opinions. They listed, I think, about 6 different sites and asked for our input as far as which sites we felt just soliciting input from the general
Okay.
community.
Right. Who's we, by the way?
Our group.
Who's your group?
Protect our reservoir, preserve Pine Grove. It started out as a Pine Hill, B Street through Parkland Ave, and I got a phone call in September, and I was, I don't know if I should congratulate her or kill her at this point because I haven't stopped since then, neither any of us, saying, "Oh my God, Donnie, they want to take Gallagher Park." And I said, "We use Gallagher Park every day for Pine Hill Little League. People bring their children down there. It's a safe park. It's new playground equipment. I bring my dogs down." And little do we know, when we went to the forum on September 14th at Marshall, that the Pine Grove site, the Parkland site, was on the list as well. So we kind of joined forces. We consider it all Pine Hill, but one side of Pine Hill and the other side. So we've joined together as a group. We had 150 people there on September 14th, not knowing. This is what is amazing. On September 7th, the school committee already voted to pick the site. So here we are putting the cart before the horse.
Well, that was a public meeting, right? The school committee meeting?
Yes, but we didn't know. I mean, I don't troll.
I don't go to
the public
school committee meetings either,
website. If you do, I don't know. I don't do that. But the point is, they already picked the site when we went to the meeting. We felt like a bunch of guinea pigs, and we were very upset. So since that day, Jim, on September 14th, this has been unbelievable.
Well,
and Gary can
tell me
attest to
more
it.
about your group. Do you have are you a corporation? Are you a formally organized group?
Yes.
And what's the name of the
Secretary of State, Protect Our Reservoir, Preserve Pine Grove.
Okay.
Secretary of State as a nonprofit and charitable, the Attorney General's office, the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, as well as the City of Lynn. We've organized, we registered with 4 different governmental agencies.
You have a board of directors?
We do.
Who's on the board of directors?
Gary, Mark Melanson, Gene Melanson's our treasurer, I'm the president, Gail Chandler and Park and I was our secretary. So we are really organized. We meet just about, at this point, almost every night. We met
So how
last
do you
night.
make decisions?
We talk it out.
Yeah. And what about the other people who went to this meeting? Do they participate in the decisions?
Sure.
So what do? You take a majority?
Well, the day-to-day stuff is done by the board. The board
Stuff is done by the board.
The day-to-day stuff. I mean,
Five or
there's really no
six
major
people.
decisions to make. We decided to buy
Well-
signs. We decided to,
We solicited volunteers
Right.
from the general community to help in terms of spreading the awareness. We have some Facebook people who run the Facebook page.
I don't run Facebook, for the record. It's not me. So we do have a couple.
But isn't there a proposal out there, a compromise proposal, to give some of this land to the cemetery after the school is built?
Yeah, but it changes from day to day. At one point, we did hear the mayor talking and saying, was she meeting with you?
She wasn't meeting with me. I mean,
Okay,
she was on the show.
Yeah, she
but,
was on
she-
Joe Spina's show then.
Yeah.
And she was talking about reaching out to our group. We haven't had her reach out at this point. However, it seems to change from day to day because on one show she was talking about needing 12 acres for the school plus another 5 acres set aside to compensate for McManus Field. Next thing you know, she's on another show and she's saying she wants to put the Tracy school, the new Tracy school up there, and a senior center.
She wants to put it there?
Yeah, and we just think
She wants to put it there, or she wants to find a spot? Because
No,
she
she
said
wants
that
to
on
put it
this
there.
show.
She
didn't say that on this show.
She said she may have to reserve some space up there for Tracy. I watched the show
and maybe
last night.
and
Yeah,
maybe, and
I
maybe,
watched the show.
I didn't hear
maybe a
that.
senior center. Yeah.
And maybe so. We just want to get back to the. I don't know if we can pan in on the thing behind us. We're contending that our forefathers in 1893, and this is the Pine Grove Cemetery Commission official records, they bought this land in 1893 for future cemetery use. We do understand that our attorney's also done an exhaustive title search. It is recorded with the City of Lynn. We concede that fact. We understand it is city land, and we would just ask the city and the mayor and others to honor the forefathers. This is reserved.
But that has no legal significance.
I agree.
You agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
But behind you, it shows you every assessor's map and every atlas and everything in the whole city. It has City of Lynn, it has cemetery clearly designated. Somewhere along the way.
But if you were going to certify title to that land,
I
you wouldn't
agree.
be able to certify that.
Right.
Okay.
But 127 years it hasn't been used. Now all of a sudden we're going to take it away from the cemetery and use it. But we do agree with that. Parkland Ave was not there. That was built in 1920. This piece of land was one contiguous piece of land from the day they bought it until Parkland Ave was built. And if Parkland Ave wasn't built, when they built the wall with the WPA Act years ago, That wall would have gone all the way around the whole site. But there was a road there, and someone stopped building that wall at that Parkland. But it's cemetery land. The cemetery commissioners gave approval to build a dog park. They gave approval to build a salt shed.
There was a conveyance on Averill Street.
They conveyed land years ago.
That specifically was conveyed from the cemetery commission to a homeowner.
Okay, but that has no bearing on this plot, right?
No, up on Averill
They
Street.
gave a piece of that
yeah,
plot to a
yeah.
homeowner on Averill Street.
All right, let's go to the reservoir. Part of the name of your organization is protect the reservoir. I shouldn't admit this on camera, but I used to swim there when I was a child with the grandfather of somebody who works at this studio.
Okay.
I saved him from drowning one time. Wasn't Pedro.
Okay.
So, have you seen any studies on how is this going to affect the reservoir? Let me ask you.
We haven't seen any environmental studies at all. I called Lynn Water and Sewer Commission, talked to somebody there. They couldn't comment because nothing has been submitted to them for their input. In fact, we're getting that from a lot of
But at this
agencies.
point, you don't see a problem with the reservoir being impacted in any way.
We do.
What is the problem, and what do you base it on?
Well, I worked for an engineering firm for a number of
Yeah,
years,
I
did any number of site plans. They designed water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants. I'm very sensitive to the issues of water quality. And the one thing I've never been able to do is make water run uphill. It always goes down. So our feeling is the water is going to find the storm, and I'm talking stormwater. So stormwater is going to find its way into one of three places.
What's stormwater?
Stormwater is whatever
Storm.
comes down. It's right now, as far as state environmental agencies, it's considered one of the more major pollutants these days in terms of
Okay.
so both state and federal. The real push is to take care of water quality issues because of storm runoff. So the runoff now is going to come off of roadways. It's going to find its way into one of three places. It's going to find its way into the wetlands that are up there, and there are wetlands up there,
Right.
there's vernal pools. Okay, it's going to find its way into the water table, or it's going to find its way into the reservoir. Now, there's a
Is there
possibility.
any way to stop it?
You can treat it, but no, if that area is developed,
Where's the water come from? The stormwater.
Clouds.
Rain.
Okay.
Stormwater, yeah.
So you can't build a culvert or something to divert it?
well, the question is, can it go down all the way to Parkland Avenue? Because they're talking close to a mile of roadway going into this site. And right now, the people at, I think it's Shoemaker Street, they're already having problems with flooding. And we're adding now 12 more acres of impervious surface up there. They're going to develop a roadway, they're going to develop parking lots, they're going to develop, and obviously the school itself. So all of that impervious surface has to drain off and go somewhere.
Okay. So obviously, when you build a project like this, the state is funding part of it. That there are significant studies done by everybody, architects, environmental engineers, as you know, and everybody else. And they certainly would pick up a problem with this stonewater, I would assume, and come up with a solution, or they wouldn't allow the project to go forward, right? Isn't that so?
Well,
This is our problem with the whole thing. If you take trees away, trees are a natural filter, both for the water and for the land. You take trees away, you start messing around with wetlands. As Gary said, where's the water go to? We don't know.
There aren't that many trees in this parcel.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I was up
Are there?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of trees. There's a lot of trees. Number one, there's ledge up there. Expensive to build on ledge. You can't bury people on ledge, and the wetlands are up there, as well as in their own report. Jim says we've gone through it, and they're starting taking things down now because we've been going through and using it. It's the number one site with the most impact on natural habitat. Number one site of all the sites I looked at. Deers, vernal pools, all sorts of wild species up there. Number one impact site. But they haven't released it. This is why the process, the money, and the site are the three big problems. You're right, I'm sure there's federal state guidelines. Do you think in Marblehead or Swampscott or Nahant or even Salem that you
Even Salem?
Well, I'm just saying it's a big city.
Yeah, right.
Would they just simply rubber stamp a site and put it out to the voters? We haven't had any environmental impact meetings. We haven't been at a council meeting or at the Lynn City Hall auditorium and having a citywide advertised meeting and say, let us answer our questions about the environmental impact. No one's done that. We don't know.
But-
Gary and I mean, Gary has experience in it. I'm just reading and reading and reading. We don't know what.
But there will be an environmental impact.
But shouldn't that be done
It
before we
won't go
vote?
forward.
We
Shouldn't that be
reached.
done before we
Is
vote?
does anybody require that?
Yeah, if they're going to be on this piece of land, they're going to have to submit to the Conservation Commission.
Right.
We reached out to the Conservation Commission. They said they can't comment because nobody has approached them about this site at all.
And the
Isn't
Cemetery
that-
Commission, the same thing.
Isn't that putting the cart before the horse? Shouldn't you get it approved first and then go forward? And look, if it's going to impact the environment adversely to the point of serious harm, I would assume it will be stopped by the state, if not by the city.
But shouldn't the taxpayer and the homeowners and the abutters have input? Shouldn't they have their say? They've been there 60
Well, they will
years.
have input. They will.
When?
When
The
they're
project's
doing
been
that,
ran through
when
for the
they're
last
doing,
3 years, and no
when
one's had
they- well,
one-
the
one
taxpayers are going to
response.
have input in 2 weeks, next week, March
Next week, yeah.
14th.
Right. But don't you think that this group and the neighbors up there should have been involved and included and responded to? Isn't that bad government when you have organization? You have motivated people. We talk about it with presidential races and local races. Bringing people into the process. We brought hundreds of people into this process. Motivated. These people are all going to vote in the fall. They're all going to. They're upset. You know, they don't know what their taxes. And we'll talk about taxes. But how do you not have an open environmental impact meeting with your neighbors?
Well,
Never.
there will be one before, once it's approved by the taxpayers. There's no
You know
sense.
more than we then. You know more than we do.
There's no sense. There is no sense spending all that money if it's not going to be approved by the taxpayers. Do you agree? Look, let's go back to.
No, I'm just saying, to respond to that, Jim, like, you must know more about the process than we do. We don't know what part of the process that they're going to do this or respond to it or pay for it. I mean,
Let's go back to Pickering. You agree that Pickering should be replaced?
Either replaced or refurbished, yeah.
Doesn't even have a library. Doesn't have a laboratory.
Yeah, it needs to be gutted, it needs to be
Yeah.
brought and made compliant,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the estimate we have heard on that is about $40 million to
Right.
to
So
do.
where would that money come from?
Well, it can't come from MSBA, from what we understand.
Right.
So the question is, it might come from Chapter 70 funding
Or from the taxpayers of Lynn,
or from the taxpayers?
right out of the budget.
we don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
There's state funding available to rehab schools. How do people rehab schools? How do we put buildings and windows and roofs together? It's not, oh, we can't just rehab it. You're an attorney. What's the mass trial court
Well, look,
doing? No, but I'm
I
saying.
am an attorney, and I believe strongly that we should have the 2 schools in Lynn. I mean, I don't normally give opinions on this show, but this is an important project
course
for
it
the
is.
city.
Yeah, and
the wrong
we
site.
don't disagree.
What site
We're
would you use?
disagreeing with the site.
What site would you use?
Yeah, I'd use the existing Pickering. I would knock it down and build a new one there. And that, in their feasibility study, that was one of the things that was recommended.
Where would you put the students while you were?
You build the McManus School first. It's 180,000 plus square feet. The Pickering, the new Pickering will be 130,000 square feet. So you can more than accommodate all the Pickering
Aren't you
students.
talking about 1,800 students?
You can.
You could put them all in the McManus School?
No, I'm saying build the McManus School first, 180,000 square feet. Move all the Pickering students, they'll have more than enough room, into the McManus School temporarily. Knock down Pickering, build a new Pickering right where it is.
I don't get it. I don't get it. If the Pickering is already overcrowded, how are they going to fit in? McManus is
Because
smaller
Pickering
than...
is 130,000, the new one, projected, and these are projected dates 10 years out, more. So if 130,000 square feet is enough for the Pickering students, 180,000 is more than enough.
I'm not sure the Pickering's overcrowded right now. They're actually projecting a slight decrease in the Pickering enrollment. the next
What's
few
their
years.
class size, do you know?
It's in the 600s. Today,
No,
was
I mean per teacher. That's very
I
important
don't know.
to
But today at the
educators.
Chamber of Commerce, the Lynn Teachers Union president had a PowerPoint showing that the Pickering enrollment is going to decrease over the next few years. My neighbor's a teacher, I believe in Somerville at Cambridge. They did the same thing. It's called planning. All of a sudden, a week before the election, no one knows how much their taxes are going up, no one knows what about the location, no one's got an environmental impact statement, no one knows how it's going to affect the reservoir. The B Street neighborhood today, in 2017, on that map behind you, would never been built that close to the reservoir. It would be against federal and state regulations today. So there's alternatives to this. The state can find money.
So is this violating state or federal regulations, the site being proposed by the school department?
We don't know. I don't know. I'm not being, I don't know.
Well,
I would hope not. I mean, I would think.
So would I, and
I would
I
hope
would
not.
expect they wouldn't do that. So why even bring that issue up?
Because the neighbors have a right to know what's going on.
Well,
Don't we have a right to know where our tax
course,
dollars are going?
of course, of course.
What's happening in our street?
Of course.
Let's talk about the neighbors now, because all along Parkland Avenue, Averill Street.
Best neighborhood in the city, by the way. Forgive me,
Which
but
one?
Pine Hill.
Oh, thank you.
We have interviews now that come in. I'm only kidding.
Go ahead.
But the abutters on Parkland Avenue, Averill Street, Shoemaker Street, every one of them has a deed that shows their rear property line being Pine Grove Cemetery. Every one of them did their due diligence. They went in, they went through all the documents and thought that in the future their neighbor would be a cemetery. And now suddenly they're talking about taking somebody's home, and then the two neighbors to put their driveway in, the roadway in, and then the two neighbors on either side who used to have a quiet neighbor are going to have buses 5 days a week, twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, going up that street. It's going to connect over to Averill and Shoemaker Street from Parkland, so everybody sees the traffic backed up on Parkland Avenue up to Wyoming Square. They're going to cut in through that property. It's going to be, nobody ever, when they bought their house, expected this was going to happen, and they didn't have any reason to think this was going to happen.
Right, shouldn't people have a traffic impact statement, an environmental impact statement, know what your taxes are going to be? At the chamber today, people don't know what their taxes increases are going to be.
What about their increase in value, the increased value of their property?
Well, we
They're
think
probably going to more than offset any tax increase.
Number one,
This is a quality of life issue for Lynn kids especially, but for Lynn families.
no one's disputing that, Jim. We agree with you.
Well, where are you going to go?
we just gave you a solution.
There's many sites. There's many other sites.
What are the other sites?
Okay, they've been down the field on Federal Street where they're building a market basket across the
Yeah.
street.
Are you kidding? You want to put them in the pollution? I used to work there. I know what pollution is in
So
the
you can have a
ground there.
supermarket and buy food, but you can't build a school.
What?
You can have a supermarket and
Yes.
sell food.
Yeah. You want to put your kids down there? I mean, they used to pour oil and grease right down the drain underneath that property.
It's 2017, Jim. I mean, we have ways to cure the land. I mean, on their own webpage, it says that it's a suitable site.
But
no
that's
environmental
a huge expense because for one thing, you never know what the expense is until after it's all cleaned up.
That's correct. But what's the loss of cemetery land? Gary figured out 1,250 plots per acre. There's 44 acres. You times that out, you're losing about $40 million in future cemetery revenue by taking this piece of land. So, there are alternative sites instead of disrupting what our forefathers wanted, not having a traffic impact, not meeting with the neighbors, not knowing what your tax increase is. They haven't set the tax rate. Your regular taxes in the city of Lynn are going to go up. Your home value went up, so if my home was $275, now it's $300. Even if they keep the tax rate equal, the tax rate's going to go up. Secondly, for the schools, how much is it? 51%, 80%?
Well, even if it's
190 million
51%.
they're saying for schools, these two schools. The Lynn item said that the Marshall cost $67 million. Why is this school 90 and 100 million? Don't people have a
Why
right
is
to
it,
know all that?
when you say this school or these schools?
Both schools are 188.
Well, that's twice as much as
Marshall
Marshall.
cost $67 million according
That
to
is
the
two
Lynn item.
schools,
One Parkland
different locations.
Parkland Ave is 90, and the West
By
End
the
School
way,
is 100.
by the way, glad you raised that issue because it costs more. Every single month you don't build, the prices go up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is several years since the Marshall School was built.
2 years, yeah.
So if this gets delayed further, for any reason, then the prices are going to continue to rise, whether you rebuild Pickering or whether you put the school on another site.
They want to spend
And
$1
will
million
you
on
lose?
a bridge to get into the site. $1 million to get over the wetlands.
Well, why not? It
You can move a
protects
pipe
the,
in Magnolia. First
it
it was
protects the, it
$300,000.
protects the wetlands.
Then it was $800,000, then the pipe was $1 million, now the pipe's $3 million. They keep changing. I went to the meeting, I told you, September 14th at the Marshall School. The Magnolia site was $67 million. And they're telling me I make it up and I'm lying. I was there when I saw it. We had the documentation. Now they're saying that Magnolia is $87 million or $187 million. It keeps changing. It's not, they're not playing accurate.
Go ahead.
Okay, let me just ask here. The school size is going to be the same, whether you put it where the existing Pickering is or whether you put it up here. This site has the disadvantage of having a mile of roadway, which means a mile of other utilities, infrastructure, water, sewer, gas, electric. They're all going to have to go into that school. How can this be a cheaper alternative than bringing it down and putting it where the existing Pickering is? How do you take a mile of roadway and make this a cheaper alternative? It's not.
You mean a cheaper alternative to Pickering?
Yeah. Yeah.
To the Parkland site.
Yeah. The schools are going to be the same. The only difference is going to be the site itself.
There's no reason why you can't rehab the current school, make it beautiful. Let me finish. Those are old buildings. The trial court does it. You go to Dorchester District Court. There's a beautiful glass foyer. You walk into the old building. It's all rehab. They add wings in the back. Why can't you add science wings and computer labs and state-of-the-art schools off the floodplain down there? If you have a public forum and bring the public in, they answer our questions. They haven't done that. They did their mandated minimum forums only. They have not met with the neighbors.
It goes back to my original question. Why should Lynn kids not have the same opportunities as kids from Raleigh and Ipswich with new schools?
We agree.
We agree.
These schools are.
We agree.
And these schools are a lot younger. But if you're sending them back to Pickering, you're not getting the same
But
opportunity.
we're not
course
saying
you are.
that. We're
Of course
not.
you are.
We're not saying keep them back in that Pickering.
are.
We're saying build on another site. Pick another site and do that. It's just we think not only should our kids have the same opportunities as those in Raleigh, they should have the same opportunities as the kids who are in the Marshall School right now. We just
right.
don't want them in this site.
It's too controversial. It's cemetery, morally, it's cemetery.
It's
land.
not cemetery land.
Well, what's that say, Jim?
That's useless.
Why is it useless?
That's somebody wrote that. But
It's an annual
you're a
report.
lawyer. You know, in order to own property and have valid title to property, it has to be recorded
Of course it does.
at
We
the
said
Essex
that.
South Registry
right.
of Deeds. So
Well,
that
how
makes
come-
that useless.
But how come every other mayor and every other school committee, every other person for 127 years honored the will of the forefathers?
Why? It's just been useless land since all that time. It
Therein lies
hasn't
the
been
problem.
used.
It's not useless land. It's protected
It
wetland.
hasn't been used.
Why did
It's
the
not
Cemetery
useless.
Commission
That's the
convey
problem.
land to 42 Averill Street? Why did the city have to get permission to put the dog park from the Cemetery
Well, maybe
Commission?
they should have looked at maybe they should have done an exhaustive search, as they appear to have done now. But we got to wrap this up. So you guys have been very good. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
I wish you told us where you stand before we started.
What difference would that make?
So we thought it was going to be, what's that, Fox News, Fair and Imbalanced?
No,
I
that's
had
all right.
I had the other side on last week.
No, you asked tough questions. We think
Yeah.
we answered them accurately.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. We're supposed to.